Initially sentenced to 6.5 years, he endured 7 harrowing months before thankfully being released.
Since his release, he's documented his traumatic experience in his powerful new book, You Will Die in Prison. Bernard Phelan, you're very welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. 7 months of absolute hell, I can't even begin to imagine. But what brought you to Iran in the first place?
It was my 5th trip to Iran. I've been going there since 2017. I'd made friends, and I was working with an Iranian tour operator, helping him to promote Iran in Europe.
Okay, so you're promoting Iran, and you also talk about Iran as not being the place that it's portrayed to be, but across the media in the rest of the world. So you're working for a tour operator. So why were you arrested?
Because I had the visa on my French passport. I have double nationality.
Yeah.
And for practical reasons, my visa was on the French passport. If the visa I since discovered, talking to people in the Department of Foreign Affairs, if the visa had been in my Irish passport, I would not have been arrested.
Okay.
So because they wanted to basically target French nationals,
exactly.
That's why you were arrested.
They wanted to swap. The Iranians have this hostage diplomacy. They have a shopping list. They say, we need 2 French hostages, we need a Belgian hostage, we need a Swedish hostage. And I was unfortunately a French hostage.
Yeah. Okay, this is to have people released in French and Swedish.
There was an Iranian prisoner in Belgium, and he was released just shortly after I came back.
Okay, and so that was the barter system there, obviously. But being a pawn in such a game, utterly traumatic. But the events leading up to your arrest, what was it like? Did you have any forewarning that this might happen to you?
I mean, everything was going perfectly. I mean, I had lunch with my pal, and everything was grand. Went back home, came back in the evening, take photographs of the mosque and the sunset and etc. And he had a big camera, and he's walking away, and the next minute 2 guys walk up to us, showed a card, follow us please. And that was the start of the nightmare.
What happened next?
They interrogated us for about 2 hours outside, and then they said to us, you have to come talk someplace else. And they took us away, and we went on for about 3 or 4 hours, and then they said, we'll take the 2 of you away to someplace else. I was separated from my Iranian friend, never saw him again.
Ever? Do you know where he is now?
He's in Iran, he's okay.
Okay.
And they took me to an interrogation centre, and I was put in a first cell, taken out. There was another Iranian guy, took another cell. And there were 2 Iranians. I said, why are you here? And they said, one of them spoke English. He said, I'm a protester. And a few minutes later, they were taken out of the cell. I was left in my cell on the floor. And I don't know what time of the day it was. And next thing I heard a door opening in the corridor, and somebody going into the next cell next door and beating somebody with a truncheon. And here's a guy screaming, and a guy banging, hitting somebody. And I knew I was in trouble.
Did you think mine is the next cell? He's going to come in here?
I didn't think. I knew the Iranians wouldn't physically harm me.
Okay.
They need hostages in good health. We're valuable merchandise. For example, later on when I was in prison, there was a gym in the prison. We were not allowed to go to the gym because they were afraid we would hurt ourselves, break a leg or something, because they wanted us in good health.
Okay.
We're valuable merchandise.
Okay.
But because they wanted you in good health, you spun that on his head, and you actively chose to damage your own health in the hopes that you get released earlier.
And it worked.
Tell us what you did.
I have medical problem, a heart problem, and I had HIV, and I had a whole range of medication. And when I was in the first part, they would give me the medication, take it down in front of them, I put it under my tongue, and then when the door closed, I go into the toilet, spit it down the toilet.
Right.
And then later on in prison, when I got medication from Europe, I wouldn't take the medication for the heart, and I'd spit it down in the toilet every morning. So my heart condition got worse and worse, and the doctors in the prison were very worried, and they were screaming at me, your heart, your blood pressure is terrible, something terrible would happen. I said, yeah, but get me out of here.
Yeah. So that was your hope, was that they would release you rather than you doing really serious damage to your heart.
Yeah.
Because the political ramifications of a seriously ill, if not dead, because you could have died, let's be real about this, prisoner, political ramifications would have been unbearable for them. So they needed to keep you healthy.
Exactly. And it worked. You know, it was the only arm I had. That's why, you know, I went on hunger strike for, 3 or 4 weeks. My dad asked me to stop. You know, I said, you know, my dad was, at that stage, he was 97. You know, he said, Bernard, please stop.
So what contact did you have with your family, and who did you talk to from the outset, from the minute of your arrest until when you had some idea what might have been going on?
I didn't talk to anybody for I didn't meet anybody for the first month. And then when I was moved to the prison, I was able to talk to the people in the embassy.
Yeah.
And Iranian law says that foreigners must be able to talk to their family once a week. And the 7 months I was there, I think I talked to family 4 times. I talked to my dad 1 time, my sister, Caroline, I think twice, my husband Roland twice.
Okay, so you weren't getting it. It was definitely not once a week.
No.
It certainly wasn't happening. The judge, the judge who said to you that you will die in prison, bearing in mind that you hadn't committed any crime, I mean, that must have been so hard to hear.
It was pretty incredible. I mean, I remember going into his office, dressed in prison uniform, blue striped form, handcuffs, shackles on your feet, and he says, "Sign this paper." And I said, "No, I'm not signing the paper." And I said, "Would you sign a paper in French or in Irish?" And he sort of looks at me with a sort of smile, and they bring in a guard, try to force me to sign. I'm with my hands crossed. I'm not signing the paper. And he says, "Go out." And as I'm walking out of his room, he says through his translator, "You will die in prison."
An absolutely terrifying regime to be.
Because I thought I'd die just from health, health reasons.
Okay, so no physical torture, but plenty of psychological and mental torture.
Yeah, what they call white torture. It's building up hopes and then crashing them. You know, Benjamin, who was in prison with me, he was declared free. It was in February. He left, I remember, on the loudspeaker, "Benjamin is free." Everybody applauded. He went away. 20 minutes later, he came back. "Why are you back?" "They won't let me out."
So that was psychologically destroying for all of you.
Yeah.
So destructive. But when so you had this, you basically massively risked your health. You refused to sign anything. You had contact with your family very sporadically and contact with the embassy. But you were moved then to a notorious prison known as Satan's Block, and executions, misery, torture, all of these things was going on around you.
Yeah. I mean, there were 2 cells in our block. Our block wasn't very big. It was about 10, 15 cells. There were about maybe 70 political prisoners. There was judges, there were doctors, businessmen who were all political opposers. And there were 2 cells on the ground floor, which they would bring prisoners from the rest of the prison going to be executed the next morning after prayer. And you could see their shoes, their flip-flops in front of the door. And you could hear them crying. And they'd cut the phones so nobody in the prison could tell their family, tell their wife, tell their husband, tell their parents that he's going to be executed tomorrow morning. And that was very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely difficult.
Witnessing someone else's utter pain and despair, and a lot of these people executed for no good reason at all.
No, I mean, Iran comes second after China in executions. I think they've executed about 700 people. I mean, I was in my cell, there was a very good, now become a very good friend, Taj. He's 43 now. He was now 10 years in prison. He was condemned to death, and his condemnation was quashed when I was there. I've since heard he's Taj is now being condemned to death again, and I don't know when he'll be executed, and it's really rough.
Yeah,
So you've no idea what's happening,
and it's very clearly upsetting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was his crime, or what was his alleged crime?
He was nothing. He's a plumber electrician, and in his village somebody said he was a terrorist, and because he's Sunni, because in Iran is a Shia, Sunnis are persecuted. There was another guy in prison in another cell with me, and he converted from Shia to Sunni. 20 years in prison.
Wow.
So this, like the sort of PTSD you have from an experience like this, I mean, it's so recent. How do you navigate your life now? How do you exist from day to day?
It's easier now. It was very difficult at the beginning. And, you look at a television program, you see a comedy, and next minute there's a scene of a war. I just break down in tears.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah, it's not so bad now. It's easier now. But at the beginning, it was really difficult. Navigating, trying to avoid. I don't listen to news anymore. I don't read any war stories. I hardly read any books. I'm a big reader.
Yeah.
So I'm a different person.
But when you were released, could you believe it? Was it joy? Was it guilt?
It was
happiness?
joy,
was
but
it
at the same
disbelief?
time, when we were taken down that morning, and he said, "You're going to be released today," and the head of the security said to Benjamin, said, "But you'll have to write a letter saying we will not attack the Iranian state or the prison for mistreatment." And Benjamin and I said, "No." And he said, "Go back up to your cells."
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were released.
And about an hour later, the guards came back, were released. We were taking cars. We didn't know where we were going. We were going to a hospital, we were going to the airport. We didn't know anything. And we were really scared that right up to the last moment, we're on the plane, a French plane, the pilot said to me, "We're not flying to France. We're getting out of the airspace."
Oh my God, look at that.
28 minutes,
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Walking down those steps, it's so emotional.
And who are you greeting there?
Roland, my husband.
That's your husband
that's your
after
husband.
7 long months.
Yeah.
That's, I've got
torturous months.
I've got actually goosebumps looking at that, and I can't fathom what you've been through. And I just hope you're getting the help that you need.
Yeah,
and
I
I
am.
hope writing this book has been therapeutic for you in
It's
some way.
been fantastic.
Yeah.
Getting it all down on paper, explaining everything. It saved me.
Yeah.
And I also hear that there's a documentary in the
Yeah, there's a documentary which they're working on at the moment with the same name, and there's so many people. The Irish government were so fantastic. I discovered that Micheál Martin took part in Zoom calls with Roland, my sister. The Irish were really, really good. The Irish ambassador, Sonia McGuinness, I remember when she came to the prison and she rushed up to me and hugged me, and the Iranian guard was open his mouth, because men and women can't touch each other in Iran unless you're husband, wife or daughter. Right. And the guard sees this woman rushing up to me and hugging me.
Yeah.
And it's just so emotional.
I was about to say that would have been quite an emotional moment for you. Yeah.
Listen, so happy that you're home.
Thank you.
And you're safe and on the road to recovery in some way, shape or form.
Okay, and getting set to celebrate your dad's 99th next month.
99th next month.
It's
That is
fine age
fantastic.
to take the joy while we can. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us today. And of course, to read Bernard's full account of his experience, be sure to pick up a copy